I wasn't looking for a fight. Truth be told, I had no interest in drama when I packed up my life and drove back to the old ranch my grandfather left behind. The place wasn't much by city standards. Sagging barn, retired windmill, fences patched with barbed wire and hope, but it was ours. Every nail, every fence post, every acre had my grandfather's sweat in the soil. He was the kind of man who didn't believe in shortcuts. If a hose had to be coiled, he'd take the time to show you how to do it properly, loop by loop, hand steady, patience worn into his bones. If the fence sagged, he fixed it himself instead of calling help. If coyotes came sniffing, he'd scare them off with the same old shotgun he never kept loaded. He wasn't perfect. He was stingy with praise, careful with money to the point of irritation, but when it mattered, when neighbors were down on their luck, he was the first to load up hay bales and lend a hand. That was the kind of man he was. When he passed, I left my job and came back for good. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. He'd built something here, and I wasn't gonna let it rot under someone else's boots. But the land wasn't as quiet as I thought. It started small. Along the eastern fence line, there was a strip of green that didn't belong. The rest of the ranch was dry brush, dirt baked hard by the sun, but this strip looked like a golf course. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor had overwatered, but when I walked it, the ground felt soft, like someone had dug it up and covered it again. That night, I thought about it longer than I should have. My grandfather always said, "Land don't lie, son. If it looks strange, it probably is." The next morning, a letter arrived. Heavy envelope, gold seal, thick paper. Whispering Trails HOA. I'd never heard of them. Inside was a demand, $250,000 in unpaid assessments. According to them, my parcel had been absorbed into their subdivision 10 years ago. They claimed I owed for shared services like perimeter security, road access, and irrigation. I laughed out loud. The gravel road hadn't changed since the 60s. The only security I'd ever seen was a coyote chasing a rabbit. And irrigation? The old pump was rusted through, hadn't run in 6 years. I figured it was a mistake, so I drove down to their office to clear it up. The building didn't even look official. Stucco walls, a fountain out front that probably cost more than my entire barn roof. Inside, everything smelled like air freshener and entitlement. A man at the desk in a polo shirt looked up, clipboard in hand. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I got this letter. Whispering Trails HOA says I owe you $250,000. Pretty sure that's a mistake." He scanned the paper without blinking. "No mistake, sir. Your property was annexed into the Whispering Trails community in 2011. You've been benefiting from our services ever since." I stared at him. Benefiting? I've been fixing my own fences, hauling my own water, grading my own road? He shrugged, bored. "Expansion zoning covered it. The green strip along your property is proof you're connected to our irrigation grid." That's when something clicked. That night, I grabbed a shovel, dug into that green patch. A few feet down, I hit PVC pipe. Clean, new, fresh glue, running straight through my land, not connected to anything I owned. They were running their water system under my ranch. A few days later, a silver SUV pulled into my driveway, HOA sticker on the window. Out stepped a man in khakis and mirrored sunglasses, clipboard in hand. He didn't knock, didn't ask, just walked the fence line like he owned the place. I stepped out with my phone recording. "Can I help you?" He looked up, annoyed I'd interrupted. "HOA inspection? You're late on your compliance review?" I laughed. "This isn't HOA property. You got 5 seconds to get off my land before I call the sheriff." He froze, then smirked like he thought I was bluffing, but I wasn't. He must have seen it in my eyes. He backed off quick, muttering about legal action as he left. 3 days later, another letter came, this time from a law firm. Failure to pay will result in a lien on Lot 112B. Their map said that was my ranch, but I had the original deed, filed decades ago. No amendments, no HOA annex, nothing. They just drawn it on paper and acted like it was theirs. And while my grandfather was sick in the hospital, they'd built past their boundary. Landscaping lines crossed our fence, a fake private trail sign planted inside our land, sprinklers tapping into our runoff. They thought no one would notice. They thought wrong. I stopped answering their letters, stopped taking their calls, let the threats pile up like junk mail. Instead, I documented everything. Photos at sunrise and sunset, videos of the buried pipe, the fake trail sign, timestamp, backed up to 3 drives. Then I hired a private land surveyor, old school guy, boots worn, hat stained with sweat. He walked the perimeter with me, stopping every so often to spit and mutter, "They really thought this was smart, huh?" His report was airtight. 4 boundary violations. Decorative fence, 10 feet onto my land. Community walking path cutting into our drainage line. Fake trail sign, fully inside my fence. Underground irrigation running 47 feet through private property. I took it all to a real estate attorney. He skimmed the paperwork, then let out a low whistle. They're bluffing. If this goes to court, you'll own their clubhouse. But I didn't want their clubhouse. I wanted them to stop. So I drafted one letter, notarized, delivered by courier to the HOA president. It outlined everything: the survey, the zoning violations, the trespass statutes, and it demanded they cease all encroachment within 10 days or face injunctions and damages. Their response? An emergency board meeting, behind closed doors, not open to residents. But I wasn't interested in their panic. The hammer falls. I filed 2 complaints, one with the county zoning office, one with the water authority. The water complaint hit hardest. Drawing water across property lines without a permit is not a slap on the wrist, it's theft. Days later, the pipe was quietly capped. The trail sign disappeared overnight. Too late. The county had already scheduled inspection. 2 white trucks rolled up one Wednesday. Inspectors in vests, clipboards in hand, GPS gear slung over their shoulders. I unlocked the gate, let them work. They marked everything with orange flags, cameras rolling. When they uncovered the buried pipe, one inspector called his supervisor. "Yeah, it's real. Confirmed easement violation. Unauthorized draw." That afternoon, I got the call. The HOA's eastern expansion, fences, trails, irrigation, was all out of bounds. Their water reports were false, their permits worthless. By Friday, the county issued citations. The water authority fined Whispering Trails $142,000 for unauthorized diversion and civil encroachment. Not to me, to them. They tried excuses. Old maps, verbal agreements, the previous owner gave permission. But I had deeds, surveys, photos of my grandfather by the fence in 2013. Their lies collapsed before they began. And then the residents found out. Because that $142,000 fine, it wasn't coming from the board. It was coming from special assessments on every homeowner. Lounge signs appeared overnight. No more HOA lies. One woman showed up at my gate with a pie, said she was sorry, said her grass had been green for years and she never wondered where the water came from until it stopped. Within weeks, Whispering Trails held an emergency board vote. The president resigned, the treasurer too. Their last letter wasn't a demand, it was an admission, a signed statement that my land was never and will never be part of Whispering Trails HOA. I framed it, hung it above the door. My grandfather always said, "Land don't grow back." But fences, bad fences, always fall.